Okay, so we are back, and in the previous video, we finished up inside the level blueprint, and we created the script so that when our player enters our little room here, the light that we've placed turns on. When we exit our room, the light turns off. We've done that inside the level blueprint here, so if I play in the editor and I enter our room, there's a little bit of a delay before our light comes on, and as we exit, again, we've added that delay node, so a little bit of a delay before it turns off, and our script is working, and we've done that inside the level blueprint. In this video, we're going to start working with class blueprints, and we're going to take this same setup that we've just done here with our little room and our little light. And we're going to add a light on the outside here so that when the player approaches a light from the outside, it turns on and off, etc. We're going to take that same process that we've just done and do that with a class blueprint. Now you may be asking, well, why are we going to do a class blueprint if we've done this functionality inside the level blueprint already and it works? We can enter our room and it turns on our light. We can exit and it turns it off. Everything's functioning as we expected. Why are we going to do it in a class blueprint? Well, that's the reason why we kind of need to talk about class blueprints in this video and kind of illustrate why class blueprints are the perfect setup for this particular type of scenario. Say, for example, we had more than one of these rooms. So we have our little room here, but say this was a street, right? And we had multiple buildings. Say we had 10, 15, 20 of these buildings lined up and down our street. And we wanted to be able to enter each of those rooms and have our light turn on each of them and turn off when we exit each of our rooms. Well, since we've done this inside the level blueprint, we would need to create a trigger volume for each of our rooms. We'd need to add a point light for each of our rooms. We need to add this building structure that we've created for each of our rooms. And not only that, we would need to provide this same scripted functionality for each individual room, as we would need a reference to each point light that we are talking about. We would need a reference to each trigger volume that we are entering. So as you can see, this could get really repetitive if we are having multiple rooms, 10, 20, 30 versions of this room inside of our level blueprint. All that script is going to get really repetitive in copying, pasting all that information. And not only that, if we had another level and we wanted to take all these rooms and place them in a new level, we would have to recreate that entire setup inside that new level blueprint. So as you can see, it could get a bit tedious doing it inside the level blueprint. I mean, it's totally fine to do it that way, but working with class blueprints allows you to kind of cut down your work substantially by using a class blueprint for this type of thing here. So what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do actually is inside of our level blueprint, if you happen to close it, go ahead and go to the blueprints option from the toolbar. Let's go to open level blueprint, make sure you have it open. We're going to take our onActor_begin overlap here, and on the executable pin here, let me mouse in just a little bit, we're going to right click on this executable pin. So go ahead and right click on it. It's going to give us a little context menu that gives us some pin actions. And there's two options here. It says break link to delay or jump to delay. We want to choose the break link to delay. And when it says delay, we are talking about this next node. So if I break the link to it, it will disconnect the two nodes. So we're going to do the same thing for the onActor_in overlap here. So I'm going to right click on this pin and choose break link, like so. We've essentially disabled the script now. If we compile and we play inside the editor here, because we've disconnected those two nodes there, we have no way of toggling on our light. So if I enter our room, nothing's going to happen because we have not made those connections. So we're going to disable this for now. You can turn this back on later if you'd like, but we're going to turn this same process into a blueprint class. So let's close the level blueprint for now. Let's close it out. And there's a couple different ways that you can create blueprint or class blueprints in Unreal Engine 4. And I'm going to show you probably the most common ways and then show you a little bit later the alternate ways that you can do it. So the first way, and probably the most common, is down through the content browser. What we're going to do, let's actually go to the root content folder here. Let's right click on the content folder. We're going to create a brand new folder really quickly. So right click on the content folder and choose new folder. And then it's going to ask us for a name. Let's just call it blueprints, like so. And make sure that that blueprints folder is selected. And inside the content browser on the right, This is the asset tree. I guess I should mention this really quickly. This is the asset tree. This is the actual content browser here. So all of our assets are going to be displayed inside of this window over here. So if we went to the starter content again, here's our architecture, assets, etc. We're going to store all of our class blueprints inside of this blueprints folder. Now that we have our blueprints folder set up, probably the most common way of creating blueprints is to right-click in the content browser, and it's going to give you a context menu. And there's several options, several things that we can create. But at the very top of the Create Basic Asset section of this context menu is the Blueprint class. So go ahead and select this Blueprint class option here. Just go ahead and select it. And it's going to give us a new dialog window called the Pick Parent Class dialog window. I kind of wanted to talk about this for just a second because you may be a little bit not sure of what this means here. So when we've decided to create a blueprint class, we are going to define the parent class for that blueprint. And by parent class, I mean we have different types of parent classes that we can choose here. When you choose a parent class, you're going to inherit some type of functionality from that parent class. So what I mean by that is, if we choose character here, the character as a parent has all kinds of stuff built into it that just comes with the character class when you create it. So things like movement speed and whether or not you can jump, falling information, all kinds of information that pertain to a character resides in the character parent class. So if we were creating a character blueprint, we would choose this and then inherit all kinds of information from the character that we can then use inside of our new blueprint that we created. Same thing for our player controller, game mode, etc. All of these types of classes have specific information related to them that can be inherited and used inside of your blueprint once you create it. So for our purposes, we're going to use an actor. And an actor is, as the tooltip here suggests, an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. And that's most of the time what you're going to be using when you're spawning things inside of your level or in our instance, making this toggleable light setup. We would want to do that with an actor. So let's go ahead and choose actor, actually. So I'm going to select actor. And it's going to create a brand new blueprint for us inside of our blueprints folder. And it's going to ask us to enter a new name. So let's go ahead and enter a name for it. And we're going to call this the light_BP. Again, there's that abbreviation for blueprints. So light_BP. I'm going to hit enter, and it's created a brand new light blueprint for us. Now that was one way that you can create blueprints by right-clicking in the content browser and choosing the blueprint class. You may have noticed if you look down under the Create Advanced Asset, under Blueprints, there's some additional options that you can take for the different types of blueprints that you can create. We're not going to cover these specifically in this video series because they're a bit outside of our scope for this video series. But you can create additional types of blueprints from the advanced option here. And that was done by right-clicking. And you can also click the Add New button, which gives you that same context menu. So there's that same context menu with those same options as before. Now, the other way that you can create blueprints is through the Details panel of the level editor. So if we have our light here, so say we selected our light, and over in the Details panel, see at the very top, there's a blue button for Blueprint Add Script. And the tooltip says converts this actor into a reusable blueprint class. So this is going to take this actor and add it to a blueprint that we can then manipulate. And we're going to actually do this a little bit later, this process of converting actors into a blueprint. We're going to take this whole setup that we've created. Actually, probably we're going to take the new light blueprint that we're going to add on the outside here as well. We're going to take all of those and convert them into a blueprint class a little bit later so that we can place multiple instances of that blueprint class in our level. So then we could take this whole modular piece, this whole blueprint class, and just drag and drop multiple instances of it in our level and have it just work. And not only in that, in multiple levels, we could do it as well. So our light blueprint is created. Those are the most common methods. There's one more method. It's a little bit of the obscure method, but you could use this as well. From the blueprints option, you can create a new blueprint, an empty blueprint class from here as well. You can also convert things to blueprint from this option as well. I would probably say 90% of the time you're going to be doing it from right-clicking and creating a blueprint class here, or if you prefer the method of adding things to your level and then selecting all those things and converting it to a blueprint. Those are probably the two most common workflows for creating blueprints in Unreal Engine 4. So our light blueprint is created. Let's go ahead and double click and open it up really quickly. So it is open, and you may have noticed now that the blueprint editor has taken on an entirely new form. We have this big giant window with a little ball here in the center. We have some more panels and tabs and all kinds of things here. Kind of want to go over this really quickly before we wrap up this video. We're about 10 minutes in. So what we are looking at is still the blueprint editor interface, but we are now looking at the class blueprint versus the level blueprint. So the same functionality for them pretty much exists. There are some additional things that you can do with the class blueprint that you can't do with the level blueprint. We have our My Blueprint panel, just as we did with the level blueprint. Let me actually see if I can open up both at the same time here so we can get a better view here. So I'm going to undock one. So here's our level blueprint. Can I do these side by side? Let's see. Working on one screen here, so I'm trying to get a view so that we can see both. Something like this. I'll just toggle between both of them. Not enough space on this monitor, so we'll just do it like this. So here's our level blueprint. We have our My Blueprint panel. We have the event graph where we can do our visual scripting. We have the details panel. If we look at the class blueprint now, we have the details panel over here on the right still. We have the My Blueprint panel, but our center section has changed a little bit. Not only that, we have an additional window above the My Blueprint section. So this section in the center here, we are currently set to the Viewport tab. And the Viewport tab of class blueprints allow you to see all the components that make up this blueprint. And when we say components, we are talking about the components window up here on the upper left. The components window consists of things that you add to this blueprint that define this blueprint. So in our case, we could add, if we go back to our level here, we could add, let me minimize all this stuff. There we go. So we could add all these pieces of walls as components. We could add our trigger box as a component. We can add our light as a component. All of these can be added as components to this blueprint. So what that allows us to do is take all of these pieces, this light, this trigger box, and all these pieces as one giant, well, I shouldn't say giant because it's really not that big, but one modular piece of an actor that we can then place as a single unit inside of our levels. So that's what the components panel is, and the viewport will allow you to see these objects inside, as the name suggests, the viewport here. So let me go ahead and pop this back up just a little bit. The next tab over from the viewport is the construction script. We're going to work with this a little bit later in this video series, probably towards the end. So I won't go too in depth into it here, but what it allows you to do is set up some variables or things that you want to define inside the editor. Because anything that is changed about this blueprint, anytime you change anything about this blueprint, change any parameters or variables or anything that you do to this blueprint, move it inside the level viewport here, whatever is connected to this wire will get executed. Now this is only fired for non-gameplay, so before you play the game, when you're inside the level editor constructing your levels, etc., that's when this is fired. The event graph, which looks very similar to our level blueprint now, has some additional nodes here. And this is where we're doing our visual scripting, just as we did with the level blueprint a moment ago in the previous video. So that's what we do on the event graph. And we're actually going to pause here before we continue and start setting up this class blueprint. Let's recap really quickly here. So we are going to be working with class blueprints moving forward. And the class blueprint is a lot different than let me close this, the level blueprint, because the level blueprint is self-contained within each of your levels, whereas the class blueprint can be placed in multiple instances and can be placed across levels. So we're going to be working with class blueprints moving forward, and we're going to set ours up in the next video. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we work on our class blueprint.